Welcome back, and my guests are Bonang, Mohale and Phakamile Hlubi-Majola as we discuss what to do with Eskom. The nation is facing a crisis here because we've got a big utility, huge debts, and we've mentioned the figure of 490 billion rands. I wonder what the interest rate is. It's probably for more than 40 billion rands, and it's much more than what Eskom is able to collect. And there's been a suggestion that everybody must take pain here to try and help fix Eskom, right? And people wonder, as civil society, you mentioned it, Bonang, Mohale, people who are paying their rates say, yeah, we're paying. What about those who are not paying? It does not seem like the state or the government is keen to get them to pay after all.
So when you look at the symptoms we are suffering at the moment, for each day that we have a blackout, we lose between 2 to 3 billion rand per day. Restaurants are closing. 150,000 miners go underground. If electricity is not reliable, they just don't go. They lose 30% of production. Yeah. So the analogy, so that we really understand what we are dealing with here. If you have an asset, let's say a car, that has a lifespan of 10 years, you run it full flat, day and night, and you don't maintain it, you have the lifespan of that car. So now you drive this car, you get a puncture, a normal person will get a spare wheel and immediately repair the puncture so that next time I have a puncture, I'm ready. In this instance, the owner of the car says to you, to throw the spare wheel in the boot and don't do anything to save costs. Then you have a blowout of 2 tires. This is Eskom at the moment. Now the conversation, instead of saying, let's talk about the 10-year lifespan, says, there's something wrong with the driver. So there is nothing wrong with the board of Eskom. There is nothing wrong with the management team that is being led by Phakamile, not Phakamile Hlubi. There is nothing wrong with the program that they've put in place. They had a turnaround plan that they were ready to communicate in October. But there's everything wrong in having 15 commissions that are responsible for looking after Eskom. Where is final accountability? There is something wrong in going to Italy to say, let's ask the Italian engineers as to what we think is wrong with our power stations. When for 90 years, we were the best utility in the world. We go the deepest in the world in mining. Then we go and say, but let's ask the engineers in Chile as to what's wrong with our mines. So we send a conversation that says, we as the leaders have no faith in the abilities and capabilities of our people. And yet we know that Eskom has the best engineers in the world. And the proof point is that we are building the biggest coal-fired power stations in the world. And our mistake was, instead of just doing one, to learn from it, we decided to do 3 at the same time, simultaneously, concurrently, and parallel.
But here's the situation, I mean, which we've already outlined. We can talk all we like, right? And we will isolate the issues and find a way of bringing everybody together, hopefully, right? And see whether we can conclude in a manner that may benefit the country or benefit Eskom, as we take in inputs from members of society as well, right? But at a certain point, something has got to give. Now we sit with this situation. We've experienced it this week. You've mentioned the number of 2 or 3 billion rands that's lost every day. We can talk all we like. The losses continue. Eskom is in trouble. As we speak, what can we do immediately, you think, Phakamile?
You know, first of all, I think I must agree with what my comrade has said about the solutions that have
comrade business?
Comrade business. He actually he reflected on it in a way that we actually agree with, because you know, first of all, even when you look at how government is trying to resolve this, it shows first of all that they don't have a clue what they're doing. They don't actually know what they're doing. The executive management at Eskom has no clue what they're doing, and secondly, again, this issue of corruption raises its head, because the engineers that the Minister of Public Enterprises has requested from Italy, who are from Enel, which is happens to be a renewable energy company, that same company, Enel, is a beneficiary of the IPP project, which is currently destroying Eskom at the moment. So in other words, what's happening is that no lessons have been learned. The same corruption that's brought us to this point of collapse of Eskom continues in spite of the fact that we are sitting with a crisis.
I want to isolate the point of IPPs and get your response, Bonang Mohale, to that, what Phakamile has said, that Eskom pays R2.20 to the IPPs in exchange for what, 80s?
They sell it at 86 cents.
And sell to the consumers at 86 cents.
So the program of IPPs at the very best, when you look at Eskom 43 gigawatt nameplate capacity, and with Medupe, Kusile and Ingula hydroelectric power in KZN, really giving us an extra 9.6 gigawatts. IPPs at the most will never be more than 7% of our energy mix. Nuclear with Quebec at the most 10%. So I think let's look at the order of magnitude. For us as business, we look forward and say, let's go to where the big pinching point is. And the big pinch point at the moment is the fact that we are bleeding the resources of this entity. So the first thing to do when you're in that situation is a patient that has been hit by a train, every bone is broken. There is no point in fixing the pinky so that it's perfect on a body that is a corpse. You need to stop the bleeding. And the bleeding is the supply chain management is leaking. There are lots of connected people that are stealing money. This notion of state capture is really stealing 100 billion, and Eskom has been the crucible, the centerpiece of state capture. And some are even arguing that when you say state capture, it looks like somebody did something to us. In fact, our current leaders gave our assets to the Guptas, to Bosasa, to Savoy, and to VBS.
Well, we had the blackouts this week, right? The IPPs are nowhere near that. There's something that's going on within Eskom, and I mentioned the point of speculation out there is that Labour may be trying to sabotage the president's announcement that he wants to unbundle Eskom, or that Eskom should unbundle. That's what he said. And of course, Labour quickly moved to say, in fact, the intention is to privatize. So what happened at Eskom, at least from Numsa's point of view? What do you think happened? What led to this widespread power blackouts?
You'll recall, Tim, that there was a time when Eskom actually managed to stop load shedding entirely. And so that tells you that there is technical expertise that is capable of actually stopping the load shedding. And that technical expertise no longer is there. And this is why we see this load shedding coming back, especially in the way that it happened. I mean, from stage 2 to stage 4 in less than 8 hours. That's horrendous. Stage 4 load shedding is the equivalent of an entire power station having shut down. Yeah. And that is truly disastrous for the economy. So again, it highlights the complete lack of understanding in terms of how to run this SOE effectively. Secondly, as Labour, we remain consistent that we have a history in this country of Eskom executives deliberately manipulating load shedding and benefiting from it, which is why we were quick to say that it is wrong for people to accuse us when Eskom itself has been mired in this type of controversy
if it is the state itself, right, that ran Eskom to the ground and accumulated this huge debt burden that we have now, as well as a bloated wage bill over this period, why keep it in the hands of the same people? Why shouldn't it be unbundled and, for that matter, be privatized? Because it's clear that, otherwise it's going to get to 1 trillion rands debt in due time. If it's the same way, the same people, clearly new ideas are needed here.
Because a state-owned electricity utility is the only guarantee that we have for affordable electricity in South Africa. We are a country with 37% unemployment, where more than half the population lives in poverty, where we have on average 30 service delivery protests per day, and most of the time the demand is electricity. Now you want to allow corporations to be responsible for affordable electricity? Where in the world has that happened? Where the private sector has cared about the working class and the poor and given them affordable electricity?
I'm just wondering, as a member of the public, that if somebody runs a debt that is 10 times more than what it was over a period of 10 years and leads to the problems that, why would you say the same people must continue, the same mindset, the same approach? I don't know. Is it,
we must have a change of government.
From a strategy point of view, we need something else, I suppose. What's the best strategic approach, you think?
So for me, really, there's something sick about South Africans accepting that Eskom has been running down for the last 20 years. That the executives at Eskom has given this government a plan that says if you don't build new power stations, you are going to run out of generating power at this year, and then you decide not to do anything. And then you bring in a new board, new management. The new president of the republic is only finishing 1 year in his job, which means this board and this executive really have been trying to put their arms around the problem for a year. Where in the world have you seen a problem that has taken 20 years to cause being fixed just in 12 months? I think we need to examine ourselves. Lastly, look at the other areas where we are being wasteful. Their budget for diesel, for combined cycle gas turbines, to address the issue of peak, not base load, is 1 billion. Where we are now, to keep the lights on at all costs, they are spending 12 times a month on the budget that they had. Lastly, I think we need to go back and say, structurally, let's change the business model, but also the energy market.
Well, very briefly, 30 seconds, Phakamile, what do we do?
Well, we're very clear that, first of all, in the short term, we're going to mobilize the working class to do everything in its power to defend Eskom and to ensure that Eskom is not unbundled and is not privatized. Secondly, as Numsa, we repeat that the only way that the working class is going to take control of the situation is to kick the ANC out of power. They're the ones who've been driving the agenda to destroy Eskom and privatize it, and it's only through their removal that we can see drastic
Thanks very much. Bonang, Mohale, very briefly, from your point of view, the immediate steps that we can take. Give us some comfort. We're listening to both of you, so we'll make up our minds.
So first, we've inherited a capitalist system, but we refuse to manage it. Number two, we nearly need to be absolutely explicit about the type of leadership that we want to provide. Lastly, we look at ourselves as business and say, in which areas can we lead? And we want to lead by ensuring that we do everything in our power to ensure that we are a trusted advisor, a partner of choice, doing everything possible to ensure that this ANC-led government becomes a capable state. Because it's easier to deal with a capable state than that which is less capable. I think it's about time that Labour accepts pain, business accepts pain, government accepts pain, and civil society, because we are in a spot of bother. This is a fiscal crisis.
All right. Well, that's the situation South Africa finds itself in, and thoughts from Numsa as well as from BLSA. Thank you very much, Phakamile, as well as to Bonang. Much appreciated. And those are my guests. After the break, we will be turning our focus to the work of the Competition Commission, as well as probing their views on state-owned enterprises. What do they think about the efficiencies there? Don't go away.